TCG Meta Slay, guys. Today I want to talk about how to win with basically any Dragon Ball Super card game deck. You know, not just casually, but competitively. I'm just kind of putting together here or reorganizing my Vegeta deck. I'm not going to talk about this deck, but this is an example of a deck that people don't really know is great, and I've been able to beat every single meta deck with it. And I'm just kind of like putting some new cards in here. I definitely got the promos, so I want to make some room for this and try some other cards. But the deck is, the video is not about this deck. I just want to quickly say that what I've seen, I own, over 30 decks. I have like, secret rares for like every deck. I have all the powerful cards, and I play casually, but with the intention to still be able to, beat the best decks if possible. That being said, for example, a deck that I think I want to play soon is the Metacooler deck, which, it's a for fun deck. I know it's not going to really have the best chance of, let's say, winning a tournament, but I still think it'd be fun to try to beat meta decks with the with that cooler deck and see if it how it can do while keeping with the theme and the archetype. But anyway, so that being said, how to win with any deck in Dragon Ball Super card game. So as long as most of the leaders have great abilities, something like a built-in card draw, or in this case, this is an example here. This Vegeta leader, people say doesn't have card draw, so it's weak. But and they gave it this promo card. It's vulnerable, but it lets you draw. But the thing is, take a look at the leader and say, well, what does this leader do instead? This leader taxes your opponent's hand constantly and their unison. So it more than makes up for it. If this card was also able to draw, I think this deck and this leader would just be OP. It wouldn't be fair. So they did a great design job on this. Good job, Bandai. So that being said, understand what makes the deck fun for you to play or competitive or powerful. Build off of that archetype. Take a look at all the archetype cards that came out in the set. What, obviously can come out in the future. Because also, every single deck in Dragon Ball is never complete. It can be complete, but you have to think, well, they can make new cards for it in the future. Or you might want to try to like swap out different staples or different packages. Here's another good example. I'm glad I'm organizing this deck. I play, of course, the Vegeta Great Ape package archetype, but I've also taken some of the package out of the like the Nappa and the Raditz because they also have a similar Great Ape strategy built in. Now, if you look at all of the cards, you can put them all into one deck just willy-nilly. You can slap every single card they made for the archetypes because it would be way over 60. But that's what's fun. It lets you pick and choose the ones that you want to use for how you envision the strategy, whether it's more offensive, defensive, hand control, removal, counterplay, mid-range, or a mix of both. So get that established first. What is your strategy, the mechanics, and the win condition? Do you have like, obviously, the leader attack? Do you have a big bomb? Do you try to go for a Z energy? If it's not a combo deck, you're not going to have, if it's a combo deck, you're going to probably try to win with just one or two combination of cards. But in Dragon Ball, you can obviously win with like anything, a battle card or unison or your leader. But what I'm saying is the win condition is understanding like how you're building towards victory. Do you want to do it quick? Do you want to do it in the mid-range? Like, are you flexing where if you're playing another fast deck, you might want to maybe outrace them. Maybe you go a little bit more defensive. If you're playing another deck that is, maybe more defensive and you don't think you can rush them down, do you have a way to maybe go end game, or do you kind of just draw the line at the mid-range and just try to go all out? And then from there, just hope for the best. So keeping that in mind, then obviously you pick your deck, put it together. I think that almost every deck should play a unison, even though they're making cards that are better at removing unisons and weakening unisons. I think that's fine. It doesn't mean they're killing off unisons, right? Because obviously there's plenty of cards that destroy battle cards. Doesn't mean you're going to stop playing battle cards. The fact that they're making more cards to destroy unisons means that decks can't simply slap down like a blue Majin Buu and then just win the game, right? So that's fine. And I think that also lets us know that, for example, in my my locals rules, we have already unbanned the Piccolo Junior Red Unison because it's such an important unison to certain red decks. It's a good generic unison in red because it's a draw one with Rejuvenate, but it's by no means a unison that you play and you automatically win. And it's not like a unison that's impossible to get rid of, especially with new cards that stop and hurt unisons. But it's just a deck that opens up more possibility with red, right? Because otherwise now it's like you can only play the Gogeta Unison, and that's not fair either. That's not fun. So and that's not balanced. So that's another thing. I feel like I'm not going to go onto this topic. I digress. But you know, both critically and just from a fun standpoint, there's a lot of cards that need to be unbanned. I'm not for bans at all. I think it ruins a card game. Some errata is important, but you know, in restriction. But I think Bandai is getting to the point now where cards are more balanced, archetypes are more balanced. It's just up for the community to say, well, hey, if we don't want to see this deck being played anymore, just build ways to beat it. Just practice to beat it, you know, and then it'll fall off because people will start to play new decks anyways. And we should never, you know, try to kick out old sets and old cards, because that's what makes Dragon Ball incredible, is that you can play with a deck from BT15, BT2, whatever, and you could still go up against whatever the current cards are. So me, I like to go back, and I've been building all my favorite card decks from the old sets now. I'm pretty much done, but I'm obviously building new decks as well. And I like that I can go back into my repertoire anytime and play decks and still be able to hang with whatever's current, whatever the meta's throwing at me. I'm still slaying the meta, you know? I don't think it's a valid argument to say, oh, I think some decks need to just be retired. We see them too much. No, it's going to happen eventually, right? Nobody's going to play like, you know, a blue Goku or something like that for, you know, 50 years. If, in fact, it's their favorite leader and their deck type, then more power to them. That's fine. They should be able to do that. But naturally, over the time, you know, whatever, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the meta is going to shift anyways, because there's going to be new cards. And again, if the community builds old decks, new decks to take on the meta, then, you know, whatever you're seeing popular now in 1 year, it's going to fade away. But it's cool that it can also maybe come back, right? If a player really likes whatever the blue Goku deck, they can come back in like, you know, 3 metas later, you know, with 3 or 4 new sets, and they could still possibly win a tournament with it. But again, doesn't mean it's going to always, you know, all of a sudden be like the unbeatable best deck, right? So anyways, it's a never-ending circle. Bottom line is, you know, the game being non-rotation is the best thing for it. Finally, so getting back on topic to how to win with any deck, as I mentioned before, know the mechanics, the win strategies, and all that stuff. Second of all, build a sideboard that's made to defeat either the meta, you know, help you defeat whatever you predict is going to be in the regionals or the locals or the nationals, whatever, and also what your deck maybe is naturally weak against, right? So if your deck is struggling against unisons now, you can find cards to put in there. If your deck is struggling against discarding, like, or you know that, hey, you know what, even though people, you know, aren't really playing green, if somebody did come up and, you know, play a green discard deck, my deck would get demolished, then maybe you want to still have in like the yellow Gohans or the Daburas that help you recover cards quicker, so you have a better chance, right? So that's number 2. And then number 3 is, you know, you just got to play test the heck out of it. I said in my other video how a lot of players just automatically assume that based on one experience they've had or just one video they've seen, that a certain deck cannot beat another deck. You know, that's obviously inherently false. As I said in that video, I've seen the exact same thing happen right away, where one player was like, oh, I'm sure that my green cooler or whatever can't beat this, you know, yellow deck or something. And then at a regionals, like not even a week or 2 later or something like that, on camera, there was a player playing a green cooler deck, the unison one, that defeated the, you know, the yellow deck that was supposed to be an impossible victory. Also, that also goes in the fact that when I play a lot of Magic, I noticed that early on, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, right, players would get together and they would play test hundreds of games, right? They would say, okay, what was winning at the last tournament? What does it seem to be the buzz around what is the best deck? And then they would construct new decks or tweak other decks that have been kind of in the meta to defeat those decks. And you would see that because basically a lot of the top 8s and the winning decks would fluctuate, right? There'd be archetypes like blue-white control, you know, black hand destruction, or red, you know, red deck rush starts to come into play. But like people start to be able to build against sideboards, right? So that way there's still a good balance to defeat whatever the rising archetypes are. And this is before the advent of the internet. So nowadays, with the internet, it's even way easier to counter build, right? Because you can easily look at whatever the deck list is of what, what won the last regional, what won the, nationals or whatever. And you can somewhat predict, right, to a good degree, maybe the 3 decks you'll probably end up seeing the most. So there really is no excuse to not prepare to defeat those decks. And not just by sideboarding, but you also want to go through and understand strategically what the deck does turn by turn, right? So when they have 2 energy, 3 energy, 4 energy, when do you want to play your cards and understand what they can do against you? Is that going to be better for them or for you? Should you maybe wait and try to play a counterplay then, instead of trying to be offensive on your turn? Even if you're an offensive deck, should you try to maybe hold on to like combo power? Do you have a counterplay negate that you might need to do? Is there something you can activate battle instead on their turn? So that stuff comes into play by, again, practicing and kind of analyzing what the deck can do, both from your side and your opponent's side. All right, guys, well, those are the main things. So, like I mentioned, again, understand the leader and the deck type. Just, play what you enjoy, what you like, what can win, which to me, I think is much more broader than people realize. Then understand having a good amount of sideboard and main deck ways to deal with things like, obviously, being flooded by battle cards, right? Because a lot of decks can have a lot of battle cards, so you want to be able to remove a lot of battle cards, slow them down. You also want to be able to deal with unisons, and then sideboard against the meta decks or against the decks that give you the most trouble. And then finally, practice, learn the matchups, learn what people do with certain decks on turn 1, turn 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what some of their optimal plays are, so you can be ready. So I don't know, maybe that's obvious to a lot of you players, but at the same time, I think people forget a lot that because of those factors, again, you can build any deck, you can win a tournament, you can win a regionals, you can win casually and have fun with the deck. Because then at the same time, when you play casually, you don't want to build a deck that's just going to lose 100% of the time, right? So these are still things to take in consideration when you build your favorite archetype. Do you want to play Vegeta decks only? Is he your favorite character? Well, these still can be used to help you play casually and have fun and win. All right, guys. So don't forget, just enjoy slaying the meta, enjoy playing Dragon Ball card game, and please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos on Dragon Ball Super card game. All right, guys. Don't forget, keep your faith, say a prayer, spread the love, be positive, be thankful. I'll be coming back at you. Peace.